Hokie Hangover, live recap edition, Virginia Tech 42, Boston College 21. It just a hilarious football game. There's no other really way to put it. Just a classic weeknight college football game is what this was. Virginia Tech comes away with the win. It was beautiful. It was sloppy. It was historic on an offensive player and defensive players fronts when considering the performances of Bhayshul Tuten and Antwaun Powell-Ryland. It was validating in a take I had about Boston College's rushing defense. It was also a game where Virginia Tech did not play 4 quarters of football, which has been a trend this year. So this had a little bit of something for everyone, as most Virginia Tech games do. Ricky, all that said, Virginia Tech wins a weeknight game by 3 touchdowns. We'll take it, right?
The emotional highs and lows in this game were just absurd.
Yeah.
I think we should lead off with the good stuff, and we can save the bad stuff, which is essentially the entire third quarter. We'll talk about that last.
Yeah, that's good. That works.
Number
for me.
one, and I'm gonna take this a slightly different route than what probably most of social media is saying. Offensive line, bravo, boys.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
This
man.
was a dominant performance in the run game from the offensive line. Bhayshul Tuten had himself a night, and by a night I mean he broke the school record for rushing yards. But a lot of these runs, he wasn't touched within the first 7-8 yards of scrimmage. I
Yeah.
mean, he was getting huge lanes to run through for large portions of this game. And it was kind of a group effort. It looked like the tackles were getting involved, the interior guys were getting involved. Kyron Drones had a nice block on the on a reverse that I think was actually Aiden Green running it. But regardless, the run blocking in this game is what allowed Virginia Tech to revive themselves after what was a horrendous and disastrous third quarter. But offensive line entirely Ron Crook, all 5 of those guys, take your flowers. You guys earned it tonight.
Yeah, Bhayshul Tuten, 18 carries, 266 yards, and 3 touchdowns, Ricky. That is a single game school record. Breaking.
It's probably, I mean, it's got to be the best individual rushing performance in school history, not just in yards, but in terms of touchdowns.
Yeah, it was really impressive. Really impressive. Broke a 16-year-old single game rushing yards record set by Darren Evans in 2008. Virginia Tech's coaching staff left Tuten in with the game in hand to make sure he got that record. They immediately pulled him off the field. He was really, really good. 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground, had a receiving touchdown as well there right before halftime. Just an incredible performance. One of the best single game performances, forget just for a Virginia Tech running back, for a Virginia Tech offensive player in school history. Just an incredible performance. I want to just have this conversation off the top because there's so many different things to get to. But Bhayshul Tuten, in terms of like echelon of running backs in school history, he's up there, man. Like,
yep,
he's done a lot in a very short time at Virginia Tech, and it's been really, really impressive to watch. He's been as advertised. He's been better than advertised, even coming in as a transfer.
Definitely better than advertised. Yeah,
and the irony too is that he was between Virginia Tech and Boston College in the transfer portal 2 years ago, and he chose Virginia Tech. You'll remember. So this was kind of crazy that he had this type of performance against a team that was really after him in the portal. And yeah, just really, really crazy, man. He's just an outstanding player.
He's been wearing a brace, for lack of a better word. I'm not sure if it's a brace or a big sleeve, but he'd been wearing a brace on his knee for quite a while, essentially like the last 3 games. He did not have to wear that tonight, and I'm guessing the bye week really, really helped in that regard.
Yeah.
And he did look like he was more explosive and was able to get up to speed faster tonight than he really had in the other previous games, which is interesting considering he still played his ass off in those other games and was able to get up to speed relatively quickly as Mike lets his dog out of the room. Um, Tuten looked good in the games with the brace, and then he takes the brace off and he breaks the school record for rushing, which
Yeah.
I think it's just a testament to his talent and ability. He's really good at finding the hole and getting up to speed really quick. He's extremely physical, and he's done all this, Mike, in his short Virginia Tech career up to this point with a very mediocre passing attack. And he has been the focal point for opposing defenses for almost every week. And he continues to put up performances like this where he is the rock for Virginia Tech, and he's the reason that the offense moves. Just a really solid player, and it, in a lot of ways reminds me of Khalil Herbert. He's playing better than Khalil Herbert, but I'm sure glad that Tuten is getting to experience Virginia Tech with fans, as opposed to what Herbert had to play in.
For as long as Virginia Tech went, and it was a period of about a decade without a real dominant running back, they've had a nice little string of them now.
Yep.
You go back to the early and mid 2000s, when Virginia Tech was having all their success under Beamer. A lot of it was they were able to hang their hat on a host of really, really good running backs. And for a while after David Wilson left in 2011, Virginia Tech was really seeking that guy to really become that like multi-year bell cow back. And it basically took until Khalil Herbert for that to happen. We had that one Trayvon McMillan year, but like if we're being honest with ourselves, it was really up until Khalil Herbert, and then now we've had a couple years of Tuten. Obviously, there was the Malachi Thomas emergence late in the year, a few years back, but Virginia Tech's had a really nice string now of running backs where, you go back to when Tech had their success. That's what they were able to hang their hat on. And I think that's encouraging that they've now been able to kind of find that identity, because I think that was missing for a really long time. And like you mentioned, that rushing identity is a big reason why Virginia Tech is now 4-3 on the season, because obviously Virginia Tech doesn't win this game tonight without Bhayshul Tuten.
40 rushing attempts, Mike. This is the kind of offensive identity and the kind of play balance that I think we've been clamoring for a while. And I think that Bowen, to his credit, has slowly pushed it in this direction of leaning on the run game, picking your spots through the air, not taking too many chances. And Virginia Tech's offense has been much, much better because of it. Caleb Fields mentioning Raheem Blackshear, absolutely a guy that gets overlooked a lot for sure. Glad he's still able to kind of carve out a role in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, Bhayshul Tuten is the reason why this Virginia Tech offense has the ceiling that it does. And if he's healthy, it's going to give Virginia Tech a chance to put up big points in almost every game that they're going to play the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, not to look too far ahead, but like outside of Clemson, there are not a lot of defenses left on the schedule that have a rushing defense that obviously can stop a 266-yard performance. But just in general, if Virginia Tech runs the ball even half as well as they did tonight, they're going to be in good shape for a lot of games in the rest of their schedule. All right, so Tuten was outstanding. The first half as a whole was really, really good, right? Obviously, Virginia Tech forces a couple of early turnovers. The one in the red zone, obviously, pretty crucial there before halftime. But for Virginia Tech to capitalize off of the turnovers the way that they did, Virginia Tech 14 points off of Boston College turnovers in the first half. That's how the Hokies were able to get the margin up 28-0 at the half. But Virginia Tech's offense as a whole in the first half, even turnovers aside, I thought performed really well.
Yeah, from an offensive standpoint, it seemed like things were easy and smooth and basic, but the execution was there. And then from the defensive side of things, They were giving up some plays in the run game, particularly Castellanos scrambling and extending those plays. But I mean, just look at the drive chart for BC in the first going here: punt, fumble, fumble, punt, 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 half.
Yeah, not what you want. That's not what you want.
That is, and I mean, to their credit, they did have a 12-play, 69-yard drive that ended in the fumble. Then they had a six-play, 32-yard drive that ended in a punt. But they just really could not sustain much of anything on that side. And the secondary was good in the first half. The pass rush was good in the first half. The run fits were pretty good in the first half. Not great, but pretty good. And when you're coughing up the ball like that, you're really not able to get into a rhythm offensively. And Virginia Tech certainly capitalized on it. And I think APR's 4 sacks in this game. I think 2 or 3 of them came in the first half. He was a dominant force really for the entirety of the game, but certainly in the first half as well.
Yeah, APR, that's his 3rd career 4-sack game at Virginia Tech. He's the first player in school history with 3 career 4-sack games. Bruce Smith only had 2. So while we're talking about historic pass rushers at Virginia Tech, APR is etching his name up there as well in his short time in Blacksburg. So Virginia Tech has hit on a really key transfer in both sides of the ball, right, with Tuten on offense and with APR defensively.
And the thing about APR too, for those that were watching the game tonight, he was not getting a ton of one-on-one opportunities. He was being chipped, he was being doubled for a good portion of the evening, and he was still able to find ways to pressure Castellanos more often than not. And just a really incredible performance. He had the fumble recovery as well. It's really hard to quantify his value as a pass rusher. Having explosive and consistent pass rush really changes the dynamic on the defensive side of the ball. It makes it easier on the linebackers. It makes it easier on the corners. When you've got a guy like that is essentially a one-man demolition crew, which is, I think, how Matt Berry referred to him tonight on the broadcast. It really just changes the entire game when you can get pressure only rushing 4 guys.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. He was being treated like a star pass rusher should be treated. Like, we're going to give him as much attention as possible.
Like a star pass rusher.
Which just tells you everything you need to know. They mentioned on the broadcast.
Outperformed Ezraku tonight.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Ezraku's a good player, but yeah, there's a clear 1-2 there. It was interesting on the broadcast. Dan Mullen recruited APR at Florida, and so obviously thinks very highly of him. But the way he was talking about his work ethic as a high schooler and what he was like as a recruit and the family that he comes from and all this stuff ingrained in him, it was just really cool to listen to. Obviously, Dan Mullen hit that eval before he was let go at Florida, I would say. Really liked APR coming out of high school, obviously. Got him to commit to Florida. Obviously, APR transfers away from Florida once Mullen was let go, ends up in Blacksburg, and now he's developed now. He's towards the end of his college career. He's developed into not only one of the top pass rushers in the ACC, but, I mean, he's now going into this weekend's games. He's now leading the FBS in sacks with whatever it is now, 13, 14, 15 sacks. I don't even know. A lot.
Yeah, it's something like 13 or 14, but yeah, he's been incredible. And then really from the entire defensive side of the football, I felt like the first half play was really, really solid. And even in the fourth quarter, I thought they were better. They had some mistakes in coverage, which we'll get to in a little bit, but overall, I felt like this defense, especially in the first half, did the exact kind of thing that you need to do, which is contain Castellanos as a runner, force him to push the ball downfield into tight coverage. And they were able to do that. They matched up really well in man-to-man. Dorian Strong had a strong first half. The safeties, I thought, had a strong first half. Caleb Woodson seemed like he was around the football for much of this game. So a very strong showing from the defense in the first half for sure.
Virginia Tech had a 28-0 lead going into half. That was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're only 15 minutes in, but just sequentially, let's talk about the third quarter and just work our way through it because there's a lot to discuss here. So
yeah,
let's start with this. Virginia Tech comes out at halftime, and they had the ball first, up 4 touchdowns. And I want to say this off the top. Tyler Bowen was really good tonight. But this first drive coming out of halftime, like if we're gonna start nitpicking, because I have a hard time blaming Tyler Bowen for a Bhayshul Tuten fumble on a 13-yard carry for a first down, and I have a hard time blaming Tyler Bowen for a Kyron Drones first half fumble on a scramble for a first down. Right, that was 2 of Virginia Tech's 3 turnovers tonight. And I, again, have a hard time blaming Tyler Bowen for a really bad Kyron Drones interception that we'll talk about in a second, where I don't know if he was trying to hit Gosnell or throw it out of bounds. Whatever he was doing, it was the wrong thing. But I can blame Bowen for the whole Colin Schlee thing that we keep doing. Why do we continue to do this? It's 28-0. Colin Schlee, he's had a nice career at a couple different schools. A very good backup to have on your roster. I'm sure he's a nice kid. What are we doing with the whole Colin Schlee thing? And I don't want to call this a high leverage situation because Virginia Tech's up 4 touchdowns at this point, but it's a situation where the game is obviously not over. It's the first possession of the third quarter, and Virginia Tech just kind of screwed around with that drive. And we were in a group chat, obviously all of us, and we were having everybody had the same comment. Like, why did we just do that? What was your reaction? I mean, I know what your reaction was, but tell everybody what your reaction was to that.
It's just extremely annoying.
Yeah.
You've got Boston College up against the ropes, and you're already up 28-0. You get the ball out of halftime, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, we're going to go put the game away right now. We're going to go up 35-0. We're going to put in our backups midway through the third quarter, and we're going to send everybody home happy without any health scares. But it just seems like Bowen has these moments where he gets in his own way and he gets way too cute. Mike, I didn't think that he had a great first half just because I didn't feel like the play calling itself or the scheme was incredible. I just thought the execution was there.
Yeah.
And they did such a good job blocking in the first half that it didn't really matter what kind of scheme they were running in the first half. Not to say he was bad, but I thought he was just kind of fine.
You know what I liked? You know what I liked? Just real quick, I liked the use of the shifts with the formations pre-snap and then the pre-snap motion. When Virginia Tech's gone stagnant, I don't want to totally derail this conversation because I like where you're going with it, but when Virginia Tech's gone stagnant this year, they've struggled. When they've struggled, they haven't used a lot of pre-snap motion. They haven't shifted in and out of stuff. It just seems like there's more comfortability with the offense now. And that's what I liked in the first half, just from a scheme standpoint from Bowen. Anyway, continue.
Well, and I think that's pretty common amongst the sport. I think offenses are really struggling as defenders get more and more athletic. Offenses are having to find new ways to essentially trick the defense and get them out of position. And pre-snap motion is a great way to do that.
Yeah.
And when you've got a quarterback that in a lot of ways is not like a 2, 3, 4 read guy, you need to get him a really good idea as to what the defense is in pre-snap.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest way to do that is to motion guys around, change up the formation, and force defenders to have to move and adjust. And then that gives Kyron a much better idea as to what he's facing.
Yeah, I agree. Agreed.
But on this drive there initially, I mean, Bhayshul Tuten's having a hell of a game already in the first half. Why aren't you just sticking with it? I don't know why we need to get everyone out of rhythm by putting Schlee in the game and then giving him the football.
Right.
I have seen zilch to support any of this preseason notion that Colin Schlee is a terrific athlete. He hasn't done anything with the football when he's been given it thus far. Stop trying to like make fetch happen. It's just not there. You've got one of the best running backs.
What a sentence that was.
Yeah, what making fetch happen?
Yeah, it was really good. That was really good. I like that.
You've got one of the best halfbacks in the conference and maybe in the country.
Yeah, top 10 in the country. I can't name 10 better.
Lean on him. Like, damn, I know he's not Ashton Jeanty, but shit. This is your guy. This is your lunch ticket. This is the guy that's going to take you to wins, okay? Lean on him. Obviously, you don't need to run him into the ground and give him the ball 45 times a game, but that's the guy you've got to go to in your key spots. And, and if you're not going to go to him, you've got other viable playmakers on the offense that can get the ball moving forward. Kyron Drones has done a good job on designed runs this year. Jalen Lane, a guy who's made the football go forward in multiple ways this year. Colin Schlee is not on my list of playmakers. He's not there. I only want to see him in the game if the result is out of question. Otherwise, he can go hold a clipboard and he can prepare for his future outside of football. So, and Mike, this play got Virginia Tech off balance on offense. They ended up punting, and then next thing you know, things kind of rolled downhill.
So BC scores, right? So Virginia Tech punts, 6 plays, 11 yards punt.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead and throw the Azar comment up there. Sorry, it's a tablet, whether it's a Surface or an iPad, whatever the hell they're holding on the damn field. Like, he can hold a water jug for all I care. He doesn't need to be holding the football. That's all I'm worried about.
Can hold prize notepad, The thing that really sucked about that punt to open up the second half is that immediately Boston College hits on like 2 explosive plays and then a 17-yard play in there as well. Turbo Richard, first play of the drive. I didn't want to watch him anymore tonight. He was making too many plays for my liking. Yes. Turbo Richard had a 30-yard run on first down to get BC out to midfield. Thomas Castellanos had a scramble. Thomas Castellanos hit Morales for that 17-yarder. And then Castellanos, a couple plays later, hits Trayshawn Ward for the 25-yard touchdown. And all of a sudden, it's 28-7. So we're like, okay. And Ricky, you had a tweet. It's like, all right, how are we going to respond? Right? Because it's 28-7. You look not great on the first drive on offense, and then you look not great on the first drive on defense coming out of halftime. So how are you going to respond? Well, we're going to respond by Kyron Drones throwing one of the worst interceptions in college football this season. I don't know.
Man,
I can't call it fluky because he threw it right to the guy, but that was one of the strangest interceptions I've ever seen. I have watched the replay now no less than like 7 or 8 times, and I still have no idea what he was trying to do. Was he trying to throw it to Gosnell and it sailed? Was he trying to throw it out of bounds? Did he think the Boston College defender was somebody else? I don't know what he was doing, but it was one of the ugliest interceptions I have ever seen. I've seen a lot of really bad football played in Lane Stadium. I was a student from 2011 to 2015, right? So I was there at the tail end of the Beamer era. Outside of my freshman year, I watched a lot of really, really bad football, and I've watched some bad football throughout the Fuente era since then in Lane Stadium. I've seen some really, really ugly plays. That Kyron Drones interception is up there as one of the worst I've ever seen. Drones was pretty good tonight. I mean, he played really well.
He was good in the first half. The second half was not. He wasn't really all there, but first half he was 12 of 13 and was making easy reads, finding guys open in the middle of the zone. Was very efficient. Was not testing things too much,
and was good in the run game. Both from him running and Reed standpoint, but I don't know what that interception was. That was crazy.
He was managing the football game very well in the first half, and I'm totally fine with Kyron Drones being a game manager quarterback. But yeah, this interception was inexcusable, ugly. unbelievable.
Ill-timed, unbelievable.
And,
yeah, unbelievable.
And he's had an issue. I can't think of any particular specific examples right off the bat, but I feel like he's had an issue with getting rid of the football in those situations. And I think I texted you guys this, like, throw it into the fifth row. Like, don't.
Yeah.
If the idea is that we're going to try and get rid of it, don't just like lob it out of bounds. Hit Whit Babcock in the press box. Like, launch it into the crowd. Don't throw it to the point where it's still in play. And then if you are trying to hit Gosnell in the check down here, Jesus Christ, that is the worst throw I've ever seen. So no matter what he was doing there, it was not good.
Not the right answer. It was not the right answer, right?
And all it did was give BC extra momentum and kind of suck the life out of Lane Stadium, which didn't really get any better for the remainder of the quarter.
Well, it was only second down too, so like just take the sack. I mean, literally anything else.
Go hit Bud Foster sitting in the stands on that side. Hit him in the head. Like,
I agree. I agree. I'm just saying.
Confident that friends of the pod, Clark Ruland and Izzy Ruland, are sitting on that side of the stadium. Throw it to Clark. Clark can catch it. Throw it to Izzy. She'll catch it. Like, throw it to somebody. Throw it to the recruits over there. I'm sure some of them got hands. Like, I don't want to see you just lob it and have it land like you're hitting a chip shot on 18. What are we doing?
Yeah, choice A was hitting the mascot. Choice B was hitting Gosnell. Choice C was taking a sack. Choice D was throwing it in the direction of Cameron Martinez.
Not just in the direction of Michael. He hit him in the chest. In the numbers.
In the chest. And Drones chose choice D, which unfortunately set up Boston College once again deep in Virginia Tech territory. BC made quick work of that. They scored in 4 plays, and now it's 28-14. So now I'm thinking, okay, we've done this whole thing. We've done the okay. So now it's 28-14, and I'm thinking, okay, Virginia Tech has dominated this game in the running game, right? We have started the half with totally screwing around with Colin Schley. We have one of the most ill-timed, ugly, disappointing, questionable is putting it nicely, interceptions I've seen in college football this year. Ricky, real quick, what play was worse? And I have my answer. That interception or the safety against Rutgers when his foot was stepped on and he threw it backwards out of the end zone. It's got to be the interception. It's got to be the interception.
I think it's the interception tonight. That interception was pretty bad.
It's got to be the interception. I don't know what else he was supposed to do on that one in the Rutgers game. Anyway, it's 28-14. So here I am thinking, okay, look, everything's fine if you just run the ball with Tuten. And Tyler Bowen had the same thought.
But Mike,
Tyler Bowen had the same thought. He said, "You know what? Let's hold our horses. Let's give the ball to Bhayshul Tuten." Okay? What does Bhayshul Tuten do, Rick? He rushes for 12 yards and a first down. Nearly broke it. Nearly broke it. But before he went to the ground, fumble. Boston College recovers. So now I'm thinking, okay, great. We put the ball in the hands of our starting quarterback and our starting running back, and on back-to-back offensive plays, we have 2 turnovers.
Yep.
2 offensive plays, 2 turnovers. And Boston College, what do they do from there? They go in and score. So now it's 28-21. We don't need to recap the whole Boston College offense thing. It's 28-21 now, and Virginia Tech has to punt. Boston College is getting the ball back, down 7 with all the momentum late in the third quarter. BC throws a pass out to the right side, Rick, at the end of the third quarter. They throw a pass out to the right side. I'm sorry, this was like 2 plays into the fourth quarter. Throw a pass out to the right side to Kamari Morales on third down, the tight end. It looked like Morales had broken a tackle, a Mose Phillips tackle, went up the right sideline and got a huge gain into Virginia Tech territory. And it was looking like the Hokies were, shall I say, cooked. Then we went to a TV timeout, and none of us saw a good replay, right? Nope. So all of us are sitting here thinking, you know what? I'm not sure he was down. You said it.
I was convinced he was not down.
Based on the replays we saw before the TV timeout, there was nothing I saw that indicated he was down. So we don't see the angle of him actually, his leg, lower part of his leg, shin, knee area hitting the ground until the replay after the timeout. So I'm like, okay, he was down, fine. 4th and short, Bill O'Brien decides to go for it. I'm okay with that call. You have all the momentum.
Yep.
You got Virginia Tech on their heels. I'm okay if I'm Bill O'Brien going for it on 4th down. That's not the issue if I'm a Boston College fan. That's not the thing I have the issue with. It's that he lined up in shotgun for some reason.
That's the thing to do, Mike.
Because that's what we do in college football now. On 4th and a foot, we line up in shotgun. And Jaden Keller, one of the biggest momentum plays he's ever had in a Virginia Tech uniform, comes up with a huge stop on 4th down to give Virginia Tech the ball at midfield.
Yeah, critical point.
And that is when the game flipped back in Virginia Tech's direction. That was a gigantic play from Jaden Keller. And we've criticized the play of Keller on this podcast a lot. It's been very inconsistent. There have been flashes for sure, and we've called it out when we've seen good play out of him. And he has played well at times this season. That was one of the biggest plays he's ever made in a Virginia Tech uniform, getting that stop on 4th and short.
Absolutely. Go ahead and throw up the comment from your podcast mate, Joey. It felt like somebody pushed the Buffalo Wild Wings button at halftime. Yeah. That's a fair analysis of this. You're right. Jaden Keller, which from my understanding played more snaps in the first half than Sam Brumfield did, which is something we're going to have to
monitoring.
Yep. But yeah, Jaden Keller, huge play there. Tech was on the ropes, man. I mean, they were in serious trouble. I could have sworn that Morales was not down. Even on the 4th and 1, I'm thinking there's no way Tech's gonna stop this. They're gonna find a way to get a yard. But critical play here. And Mike, I totally agree with you. I'm not a super aggressive guy when it comes to like play calling and those decisions to go for it and things like that. But in that situation, it makes a lot of sense to go for it on 4th and short, especially when you've got Virginia Tech reeling. And Tech was able to make a play. And I think I tweeted this. It's about damn time that somebody in the 3rd quarter showed up to make a play.
Yeah.
Tech desperately needed someone to change the paradigm, change the narrative, flip the switch, and take momentum back. This is a team that, I feel like when things snowball, they snowball really bad for this team, and they really need someone to shake them out of whatever funk they have put themselves into. Jaden Keller did exactly that on this play, and after that, it was smooth sailing.
It was because Bhayshul Tuten had an 18-yard run. Aiden Green on a reverse takes it 25 yards. Kyron Drones, by the way, had a nice, I don't know if it was a block, but he got in the way on that play to spring Aiden Green loose on that reverse, and it was a really important play in the game for Virginia Tech. They needed to have set him up at the doorstep, and then Bhayshul Tuten did the rest with a short touchdown run after that to give Virginia Tech some breathing room. And then Boston College, because this is what they do on the next drive, they are deep in Virginia Tech territory. Again, Virginia Tech gives up a couple of explosive plays, including a deep pass down the right sideline. Dorian Strong got cooked. He actually was okay off the ball, and he wasn't getting burned down the field, but he kind of tripped at the top of the route, and he really had a hard time recovering. He was starting to stumble, and it was a really nicely thrown ball by Castellanos, but Reed Harris had like a 46, 47 catch down the right sideline that set BC up deep in Virginia Tech territory. Hokies held, and then Boston College, as they're trying to kick a field goal, which I was trying to understand why with 8 minutes left in the game, it's a 14-point game, why we're kicking a field goal to make it an 11-point. Yeah, why we're kicking a field goal. But they did, and they had some trouble handling the snap on the field goal, and Virginia Tech recovered. And from there, Bhayshul Tuten on the very next play, after Boston College fails to get any points off of that possession, Bhayshul Tuten 61 yards to the house to put that final score on the board for Virginia Tech. This was a game, and this is a good time to get to this now, Ricky. This is where the scoring stopped, and really the only thing that mattered after that. Boston College turned it over on downs. Hokies, of course, on that final drive, got Bhayshul Tuten the single game rushing record. But what I want to say about this performance for Virginia Tech tonight, the only reason why Boston College was in this game is Virginia Tech allowed them to be offensively. The 3 turnovers were totally inexplicable. 2 of them came on first down runs, right? If you just go to the ground and don't fumble, like Kyron Drones on a 4th and 1 in the first half, great run, and then fumbles at the end. Bhayshul Tuten, right up the middle, great run, fumbles at the end, and then Kyron Drones with one of the worst interceptions you'll see in college football all season. You take those away, Virginia Tech on a down-to-down basis in this game, Ricky, dominated offensively. They averaged almost 9 yards per play. They had over 530 yards of offense. They were really, really good tonight offensively, but those 3 turnovers, particularly obviously the 2 in the second half, allowed BC a short field, and the offense was performing well enough for Boston College tonight against Virginia Tech's defense that while I thought Tech's defense played fine, Tech gave up some plays defensively tonight. So if you're giving BC some short fields, they are going to be able to capitalize, and they did. But a big reason why Boston College was even in this game to begin with was because you allowed them to in the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I'm trying to look at it is BC spotted Virginia Tech essentially 21 points in the first quarter, and then Virginia Tech gave all that right back, which... So essentially, if you take it like that, this game is what, 21 nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you could take the 14 points off turnovers on either side, and this is 28-7 tonight.
Yeah, which, I mean, I think a lot of us would feel pretty good about a 28-7 win.
Right.
So, like we said before we got on, Mike, there was a lot to discuss here. A lot good, a lot bad. This third quarter was definitely bad.
Heinous.
one of the worst quarters of football I've ever seen Virginia Tech play. But the impressive thing for me was in the fourth quarter that Virginia Tech did not let these issues compound, and that they were able to put this game away with some big runs. And it kind of goes back to where I started with this, with the offensive line and how dominant they were today. Mike, you mentioned this on the preview, and I thought you were spot on with it. This BC rush defense statistically was very good coming into tonight.
Yeah.
But you and I looked at the schedule together on the preview, and we said, you know what? They haven't really played anybody yet. That is a really good rushing football team. They certainly haven't played a running back like Bhayshul Tuten. And when you put it all together, I don't think that they have played a rushing offense like this. And that showed up tonight. BC did not have the horses up front. They did not do a good enough job getting off blocks, and it led to a historic rushing performance.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think, to be clear on the preview, and I said, Boston College had a top 25 rushing defense statistically coming in. We went through the schedule. We did that exercise like you mentioned. I did not think Virginia Tech was going to be able to run for 368 yards tonight.
Hell no. No chance.
I don't think Boston College has a top 30 rushing defense, but I don't think they have a bottom 30 rushing defense either. And this was a bottom 30 rushing effort tonight by Boston College on the defensive side of the ball. So just a lot of good, and a lot of that, again, comes from Virginia Tech just playing well up front. And this is the third consecutive game where I think Virginia Tech's offensive line has really played well. And I think a lot of it, number one, is chalked up to Virginia Tech's using a lot of pre-snap motion that they weren't using early in the year, and we called it out as like, hey, why aren't they doing more of this? Why aren't they rolling the pocket out? Why aren't they... All these questions we had. Why aren't they using these stretch runs that were really effective last year? And then in the Miami game, they started to do that. They spammed that stretch run play to the left side of the offensive line, spammed it all night. They stuck with that against a good rushing defense in Stanford, stuck with it. And it wasn't an overly efficient performance, but Tech was able to hit some explosive plays in the running game there. Same thing tonight. I mean, Virginia Tech, for the most part, short of the first couple possessions of the second half, stuck with the run. Mm-hmm. And when you stick with the run, good things happen. This is an offensive line that's playing a lot better. I think schematically, Tyler Bowen kind of went back to the drawing board, looked at what Virginia Tech did well last year and said, you know what, maybe we should install more pre-snap motion. We have to help drones. And I think that's a really good point by you. We have to get drones in a position where he is able to read the defense pre-snap and be more comfortable with what he sees. Yeah. Because what we criticized drones about earlier this year was that he wasn't comfortable with what he was seeing against Vanderbilt. He wasn't comfortable with what he was seeing at times against Marshall.
He was very timid.
He wasn't comfortable with what he was seeing against Rutgers, clearly. He was pretty comfortable against Miami. He was pretty comfortable against Stanford, and I think tonight, especially in the first half, when he made most of his throws. I mean, he only had 5 passing attempts in the second half. When he made most of his throws tonight, it was pretty clear that he was comfortable with what he was seeing in the passing game. So I think that's a credit to a lot of the pre-snap stuff, and Virginia Tech just rushing the football better. The offensive line with the running game, it's been some scheme stuff I think has changed, but I think the offensive line is just flat out playing better. So that's something to monitor. Virginia Tech has Georgia Tech next Saturday, and Georgia Tech has an improved rushing defense. They were really, really bad defensively. I don't know if Joey's still listening, but he can speak to it. They were awful defensively last year. Really, really bad. And they have definitely improved. But Virginia Tech's going to have to do the same thing they've done the last couple of weeks. They're going to have to really commit to the run next Saturday against Georgia Tech. And that's going to set up everything else for the rest of the offense.
Well, when you've got a guy like Jeff Collins as your coach, it takes a couple years to kind of rebound from the problems that he caused. Hopefully Joey hears that. A couple of things I wanted to point out, and one of which we've touched on a little bit with drones. Mike, you mentioned you only had 5 pass attempts in the second half. 10-yard completion, 10-yard completion, 3 incompletions, was also sacked in the second half. Drones is going to have to kind of evaluate himself in the second half here and look at some of the mistakes that he made. He missed 2 deep throws to Daquan Felton that were not even close, which is frustrating because Felton is the kind of guy that can win some of those 50-50 matchups.
That one on third down, it looked like Felton kind of stopped running, didn't it? And I don't think it was a great throw by Drones, but I think he would have had a better shot at it if he had kept running.
I'd have to go back and look at it. I don't remember seeing that live, but I'm not saying that didn't happen. But
he threw it too far to the inside for sure. He threw it almost like he was running a skinny post, and he wasn't. He was running right up the sideline, so it wasn't a great throw to begin with. But it looked like Felton stopped running a little bit.
It seems like Drones has not been all that comfortable on those deep throws at all this year. He's hit on some, and when he does, they look great, but just hasn't really. He's been a touch off there, and that's something that Virginia Tech is really going to need him in the second half of the year, because you can't expect Bhayshul Tuten to run for 266 every week. So you're going to need your quarterback to make some big plays. Yeah, why not? The other thing I wanted to mention, the penalties in this game, not great. And they really reared their ugly head in the third quarter when Virginia Tech was struggling to get out of their own way. 9 flags, 88 yards for the Hokies in this one. Some of these calls, particularly the roughing the passer, was the softest.
That was bad. It was bad.
Really poor officiating, but the fact remains that Virginia Tech at least from what I can remember, has not really been a highly penalized team under Brent Pry. That's one thing that we haven't had to worry about a ton.
Yeah.
They cannot have stuff like this happen for the remainder of the year. The margin of error for most of these games is going to be way too thin to put up almost double-digit penalties for almost 100 yards worth. So those are going to have to get cleaned up. Again, I know some of those were BS, and I don't think they should have been thrown, but Virginia Tech still got penalized way too much tonight. And if BC hadn't had a really bad night against Bhayshul Tuten in this offensive line, it might have bitten them in the rear.
The one that was a killer, Virginia Tech's up 28-14, and it is third and a mile. Third and 14. And Mansour Delane gets called for a defensive holding. Looked like Virginia Tech was about to get off the field.
Yeah, and it was legit.
And force a field goal. And he yanked him. And it was going to be a long field goal, like 38, 39-yarder, which we've seen a lot of bad college kicking this year, every year.
Well, hell,
but this year
you can't even get one kickoff.
Yeah, they can't even field the
one field goal, snap. And the second one tonight, they couldn't even get the kick in the air.
Yeah, so I mean, you feel good about forcing a long field goal when all the momentum seems like it's starting to go against you, and that was a killer penalty on Delane, and he didn't have to do that either. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure there.
Mike, throw up this comment from Gregory talking about drones. Yeah, the touchdown pass to Tuten was behind him, and fortunately, Tuten was still able to make that catch. Benji Gosnell, that catch on the sideline,
ridiculous catch. Yeah.
I also do want to, just to be fair here, Ollie Jennings dropped a big one tonight.
Yeah.
Right in the chest. And so I do feel like the receivers have helped him out sometimes, but there have been some drops this year that have really come at some bad times.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I agree. Just from a box score standpoint, just hilarious. Virginia Tech, 532 yards of offense. If you take out the kneel down on third down at the very end, which isn't a real play, Virginia Tech was 2 for 8 on third down tonight, despite having 532 yards of offense. You mentioned the nine penalties for 88 yards, and then the 3 really weird turnovers. Just a hilarious box score. Like, if you didn't watch this, you're like, what in the world just happened here? Both teams with 22 first downs, but you look at Virginia Tech's offense compared to Boston College's, and you're like, man, I don't like. I think.
Well, Mike, when you have 22 plays bigger than 10 yards, 13 carries longer than 10 yards, 4 carries longer than 20, that's going to happen.
Yeah. It's actually pretty wild. Boston College. We're being technical about it. Boston College had more explosive plays than Virginia Tech did tonight, courtesy of Game on Paper. Boston College had 10 explosive plays tonight. Virginia Tech had 6. The difference, though, is that a few of Virginia Tech's went for touchdowns. So that's that's where that comes into play. What else? I mean, it's a very weird way to get to a 3 touchdown win, and
very weird.
I
Mike,
locked
your
up for
favorite stat remains.
It does. I did have a text
still in there.
I did have a text circulated tonight that this would be a hilarious way to win a 1-score game and keep my favorite stat alive. Yeah,
Mike, Go ahead and finish that.
I was just gonna say I locked up Virginia Tech on my ACC pod, and Joey, if you're still listening, never in doubt, right? Never in doubt.
I saw
locking Virginia Tech up.
I saw something on X tonight, and I apologize for not being able to attribute it properly, but this is not a stat I found by myself. But Virginia Tech's every single win since last year has been by double digits, and they're the only program over the last year plus where every win has come by double digits.
Yep. Sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah. Christopher Simone, the basketball analogy on the broadcast was appropriate. A game of runs. Yeah, that's accurate, Christopher. That is right on the money.
Just what a weird game. I feel like I'm saying this a lot.
This game was on drugs.
This was certifiably on drugs. The Buffalo Wild Wings button being hit at halftime is just the perfect. That's so perfect. Yeah, he nailed it. It's just right on the money. I don't know. We'll take it. 21 point win.
You have to feel better, right? You have to.
Which quarter? Which quarter? Look, there was a level of incompetence displayed in the third quarter that's beyond the flukiness, right? The first drive was really, really bad. Obviously, the Bhayshul Tuten fumble, that's something that happens during the game. The drones interception, I'm not sure I'll ever see. I'm not sure I'll see one again this season that was that bad, but we'll find out. There are plenty of games on this weekend, and a lot of 18 to 25-year-olds, I guess we're doing now, because there's like a million years of eligibility. There's a lot that can still unfold this weekend, but man, we'll take it. A 21-point win. Virginia Tech's now 4-3, 2-1 in the ACC. Like I mentioned, Georgia Tech's up next. We'll preview that next week as we sit here recording Thursday night. Andrew will be back for that one. He's not with. I should have mentioned this. He's not with us because he was actually at the game tonight.
Yeah.
And he said he would only call in if we found a way to blow it. Excuse me. Blow it. It's late. It's 12:02.
Go ahead and highlight Gregory's comment about the cameraman outside of Sharky's. Dog, it was pretty sad to come back after halftime, and the student section was at like 60 to 70% full.
Everybody's going to that new Sharky's rooftop.
I have not been there yet. I didn't even know it was done. Last time I was in Blacksburg, it was still being worked on.
Just done like within the last week, I believe. So There you go.
Yeah,
Virginia Tech's
popping for sure.
Yeah. I mean, everybody and their mother was there and started the third quarter, and they were all probably trying to race back to Lane. Virginia Tech's 4-3, 2-1 in the ACC play. Georgia Tech's up next. We'll preview it next week. I don't know. Virginia Tech's goals are still in front of them. Could still be a pretty good year. We've talked about it. You got to take care of business. Basically, just don't do what you did in the third quarter, and you'll be in a lot of these games you play.
It would be nice, Mike, if Tech would play 4 quarters of football against a team that didn't have a bunch of book nerds.
That's Stanford, by the way. Yeah. We got to clarify because there's a lot of those on the schedule. There's Duke.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Virginia. There's a lot of those.
It would be nice if Tech could find a way to play consistent football from quarter to quarter against a decent team. And I think Georgia Tech is a decent team. I think Georgia Tech can certainly give the Hokies fits. That is by no means I don't know what the line would be right now. If I had to guess, it might be like Hokies -3 or something. Just because of the home field advantage.
We can do Andrew's favorite game of relying on everybody's favorite metric that's not really that reliable. ESPN's FPI.
There it is.
Virginia Tech is given a 60.6% chance to win against Georgia Tech next Saturday. I don't know. That'll change because Georgia Tech's still got to play. I haven't mentioned this to Joey yet, and we'll talk about it. I'm interested to see how the couple extra days of rest come in for Virginia Tech. Also, Georgia Tech's playing Notre Dame on Saturday, and that's a body blow game. So that'll be really interesting.
That game, I can't remember. Is that in South Bend or is that in? That's in Atlanta, right? They're at
it's at Mercedes. Yeah, it's at Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think Georgia Tech has a chance to hang there. I don't know if they'll win, but I think they'll. That's an interesting matchup for them.
If the Irish can lose to Northern Illinois,
yes, that was my rationale. as
they
well.
can certainly mess around and find themselves in a one-score game in the fourth quarter.
It would be pretty surprising to see this Georgia Tech team, given their issues they've had defensively, beat Notre Dame. But it's also not below Notre Dame to like play down to a semi-competent team. Not saying Georgia Tech's like competent or semi-competent or not or whatever, but they lost again, like you mentioned, they lost to Northern Illinois. Like this would not be out of the realm of possibility for Notre Dame to be in a hell game with Georgia Tech, basically on the road here.
Yeah, and something Hokies can keep an eye on while they're watching that game this weekend. Haynes King, not really sure if he's playing yet. I haven't seen Mike. Is there any update on whether or not he's playing?
Not that I've seen, but the one thing I do want to mention is the line ballooned. So it opened around a touchdown. It ballooned to Georgia Tech plus 12 or 12.5. So probably a pretty good indicator at that point in time, or at least a guess that Haynes King would not play. But now the line is back to 9.5. So it's moving back in the direction of Georgia Tech, or of Georgia Tech. So I don't know if keep an eye on that. Out of Atlanta, they're saying that Haynes King is a game time decision.
Of course,
that'll be a very much wait and see. But
it's certainly something to keep in mind for next week because Zach Pyron is somebody that, if I remember correctly, has already beaten Virginia Tech.
Correct. In Blacksburg.
Has the skill set to do it again, even though he's kind of a limited quarterback, I think, from a passing perspective. But Haynes King has certainly got the talent to get the job done, and he's got some guys around him. So if Haynes King is healthy, I think Georgia Tech's at least in about a 50-50 game with the Hokies. And if Zach Pyron is playing, I'm not sure that it changes my calculus all that much given his athletic ability.
Yeah. Agreed. Something to keep an eye on.
We'll talk about that more on the preview.
Yeah, and we'll have a better idea of what Georgia Tech looks like, obviously, coming out of the Notre Dame game. We'll have an idea of if King played or not, how Georgia Tech looked. We'll have a better idea. So we'll be back next week, usual time, probably Tuesday or Wednesday to preview the game. We'll let you all know. We'll send out a smoke signal on social media when we're going to go live. Would be great if y'all could join us.
Yeah, for everybody that's joining us tonight, thanks. I know it's late. We were kind of going back and forth on how to do our recap for this game, given that it's a Thursday. Felt like our traditional Sunday night slot was a bit too late. So based on the engagement tonight, I think we've had a really good showing from everybody coming out. So for all of you that are listening or watching, we really appreciate you guys showing up to a late show for the Hokie Hangover, but certainly our first episode right after the game.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're new here, this is the first time you're listening to us, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts on audio. It would really, really help us out if you go do that. We launched the YouTube channel in the spring. We have seen good growth with it this football season as we've continued to push the live videos out on YouTube for our previews and recaps every week. So if you're new here, even if you're not new here and have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you're a longtime listener, please, 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 please go subscribe to YouTube. We'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you're on X, go ahead and follow us there and turn the noties on so that way you know exactly when we're going live. We always advertise there when we're going to press record.
Yep, for sure. Rick, that's all I got. We'll be back next week. Until then.
I want to give a quick shout out to my fiance. We celebrate our anniversary today, 2 years.
Oh.
So thanks
Lisa.
to her for putting together a good spread tonight for the game and watching it with me.
Yep. Shout out, Lisa. Cool. All right, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. Go Hokies.